Hello to everyone and the internet. All caught up on yesterday. Today is Wednesday, February 13th. You're watching The Unglobalist, and this is the news in 2019. Okay, so in United States news, Trump strongly asks Ilhan Omar to resign immediately for anti-Semitism. If not resign, Trump asks Ilhan Omar to withdraw from the House of Foreign Affairs Committee. Omar had apparently said the support of Israel was all about the Benjamins, saying it was just a money scheme. Someone was paying them to support Israel. Well, forward journalist Batya Unger Sargon responded to the tweet by saying, would love to know who at Ilhan MN thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel. That I think I can guess. Bad form, Congresswoman. That's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted. Omar responded to the journalist by saying, AIPAC, referring to the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. When asked about her comments on Tuesday, President Trump called for her to resign. I think she should actually resign from Congress, or she should certainly resign from the House of Affairs Committee. President Trump members of the White House press pool, adding that the hateful comments are deep-seated in her heart. President Trump also asserted that her apology was lame. After facing criticism and backlash from both sides of the aisle, Representative Omar issued an apology that said she apologizes unequivocally, but went on to continue to claim that AIPAC is a problem. Well, I don't know about AIPAC, but Israel is a problem, because Israel basically is a terrorist nation by the way it behaves most of the time, especially towards Syria. Ilhan Omar is a radical Somalia-born leftist who wants to defund immigration and customs enforcement, as well as the Department of Homeland Security. She has stated, when Democrats stood our ground last month, we proved that the individual one does not have the public support to ram his hateful wall through Congress. Omar tweeted on Friday, let's stand for not $1 for DHS. The Minnesota Congresswoman has previously made excuses for a 2013 terrorist attack, claiming the attack, which left 71 people dead and over 200 wounded, was a reaction to our involvement in other people's affairs. Additionally, as a Minnesota state representative, Omar asked the judge to show leniency for a group of men who were convicted of trying to join ISIS. The best deterrent to fanaticism is a system of compassion, Omar wrote in a letter to the judge presiding over the case. We must alter our attitude and approach if we truly want to effect change. We should refocus our efforts on inclusion and rehabilitation. Not gonna happen. One of the men she had asked for compassion for told the judge, I was not arguing there to pass out medical kits for food. I was not going there to pass out medical kits for food. I was going strictly to fight and kill on behalf of the Islamic State. Yeah, compassion, right. Compassion rehabilitation, yeah, right. By the way, I am having some difficulty reading my bullet points here because, yeah, I'm nearsighted, and I think it's getting worse. I'm gonna have to wear glasses, man. I need my bullet points to keep myself from rambling, just so you know. I'm a bad rambler. But Kamala Harris somehow claimed that she got high and listened to Snoop Dogg and Tupac 10 years before their first records were even released. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what the fuck? Like, the Democratic presidential contender boasted to the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club, which is a group on Twitter, that she used to get high as a kite and smoke marijuana in 1986. In a conversation she has said, I have, and I inhaled. I did inhale. It was a joint. Asked about the time period if she had gotten high in college, she replied, yes, A few minutes later, the host inquired about what type of music she likes and what she was listening to while stoned in college. What was you listening to when you was high? What was on? What song was on? The host, Charlemagne the God said. Charlemagne the God said. That's what they call himself? Huh. Another host suggested Snoop, and she says, definitely Snoop. Tupac for sure. She must have been high during that interview. Must not have been paying much attention. Man, as I've said, bad politicians, they're either grossly incompetent or horribly corrupt. In this case, I would say that Kamala Harris is just grossly incompetent. She can't even answer a question correctly. 1986. Their first records, both of them, were in 1996. TheGatewayPundit.com reports, but as Jerry Dunleavy noted, Kamala Harris was in college 10 years before Tupac and Snoop hit the scene. Kamala Harris said she'd smoked weed while listening to Snoop and Tupac. Kamala graduated from college in the 80s. Snoop and Tupac didn't release their first albums till the 90s. This is basic rap history. Journalists need to learn to coast. East v. West. Jerry Dunleavy, February 12th, 2019. Yep, she's an idiot. But she's still not as dumb as AOC. That's a special case for sure. Senior FBI officials put up significant effort to protect Hillary Clinton before the 2016 election. FoxNews.com reports, the trove of documents turned over by the FBI in response to a lawsuit by the transparency group Judicial Watch also included discussions by former FBI lawyer Lisa Page concerning a potential quid pro quo between the State Department and the FBI. Now keep in mind, this is not concrete evidence. This is philosophical evidence at best. Which, if you don't know how that works, philosophical evidence is if you can prove how something works in principle, that opens the door wide open to it having been a thing. That creates a strong possibility. And that's precisely what this is. Anyway, a quid pro quo between the State Department and the FBI, in which the FBI would agree to effectively hide the fact that a Clinton email is classified in exchange for more legal attaché positions that would benefit the FBI abroad. The quid pro quo would have involved the FBI providing some other public reason for withholding the Clinton email from disclosure amid a Freedom of Information Act request. Besides its classification level, there are no indications that proposed arrangement ever took place. And in the face of mounting criticism aimed at the FBI, the documents revealed that Comey quoted the 19th century poet Ralph Waldo Emerson by assuring his subordinates, "To be great is to be misunderstood." The FBI did not respond to Fox News' request for comment on the released email. Suspicious. Although, they could have just been busy. I mean, they're the FBI, they do a lot of shit. On October 28th, 2016, Peter Strzok shockingly stated that he would investigate the Weiner laptop belonging to Anthony Vienna. However, the Justice Department got on the FBI's case for not doing so thorough a good... got on the FBI's case for not doing so through a good portion of 2016. It has been suggested that Peter Strzok deliberately took his time until other federal prosecutors pressured the FBI to review its contents. On the afternoon of October 28th, the Clintons' lawyer, David Kendall, started demanding answers from the FBI, and the agency jumped into action, which had been shown by the emails. Although a portion of Kendall's email was redacted, Baker continued. He said that our letter was tantalizingly ambiguous and made statements that were, what's this word? That's not even a word even I know. Maybe a typo. But anyway, made statements that were highly ominous, such that what we had done was worse than transparency because it allows people to make whatever they want out of the letter. to the prejudice of Secretary Clinton. I told him I would not respond to his request at this time, but that I would discuss it with others and get back to him. I suggest that we have some kind of follow-up meeting or phone call with this group, either this evening or over the weekend, to address this and probably other questions that come up in the next 24 hours, Baker concluded. Sound reasonable? In a partially redacted response, Sturzock agreed to spearhead a conference call among the FBI's top officials the next day. On November 6th, just 2 days before Election Day, Comey sent another letter to Congress stating that agents had concluded their review of all the communications to or from Clinton while she was Secretary of State that appeared on the laptop, and that the review did not change his assessment that Clinton should not be prosecuted. In an email also sent November 6th and unearthed by Judicial Watch, Sturzock wrote to the FBI's leadership, "John and I completed our review of all of the potential HRC work emails on the Anthony Weiner laptop. We found the previously unknown potentially classified emails on the media." Sturzock added that the team was coming in to triple-check his methodology and conclusions. However, at least 18 classified emails sent from Abedin's account were found by the FBI on the Weiner laptop. And despite Sturzock's apparent claim, FBI officials later conceded they had not manually screened all of the nearly 77,000 emails on the Abedin's account. 7,000 emails on the laptop, but instead used computer technology to prioritize which emails to screen as Election Day rapidly approached. It is big news that just days before the presidential election, Hillary Clinton's personal lawyer pressured the top lawyer for the FBI on the infamous Weiner laptop emails. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton said in a statement, "These documents further underscore that the fix was in for Hillary Clinton." When will the Justice Department FBI finally do an honest investigation of the Clinton email scandal? Separately, another email from Page, apparently sent in response to a Judicial Watch lawsuit, discussed an apparent attempt by the State Department to pressure the FBI to downgrade the classification level of a Clinton email. Jason Herring will be providing you with 302s, witness reports, of current and former FBI employees who were interviewed during the course of Clinton investigation, Page wrote. These 302s are scheduled to be released to Congress in an unredacted form at the end of the week and produced with redactions pursuant to FOIA at the beginning of next week. Page continued, as you will see, they describe a discussion about potential quid pro quo arrangement between then DAD in IOD, Deputy Assistant Director in International Operations Division, DAD, that's funny, and on Undersecretary at the State Department, whereby IOD would get more LEGAT, or legal attaché, damn all these stupid acronyms, positions if the FBI could change the basis of the FOIA, withhold RE a Clinton email from classified to something else. Fox News has previously reported, citing FBI documents, that a senior State Department official proposed a quid pro quo to convince the FBI to strip the classification on an email from a Clinton server, and repeatedly tried to influence the Bureau's decision when his offer was denied, even taking his plea up the chain of command. Through it all, the trove of documents suggested that, top to bottom, the FBI brass were convinced they were acting appropriately, in response to a press release from Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley that criticized the FBI for failing to provide unclassified information on its Clinton probe. In a timely and thorough manner to Congress, Comey quoted Emerson's 1841 essay, Self-Reliance. Outstanding. I should have added that I am proud of the way we have handled this release of unclassified information. Comey wrote to his subordinates, including Sturzock, on September 2, 2016, Thanks for the work on it. Just a reminder that Emerson was right when he said, to be great is to be misunderstood. Have a great and quiet weekend. Page forwarded the email along to her colleagues, including Sturzock, and added a smiley face. Trump fired Comey in 2017, leading to special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation after Comey leaked a series of memos he recorded while speaking with Trump privately. Comey acknowledged in closed-door testimony in December that as of July 2016, investigators didn't know whether he had anything implicating Trump in improper Russia collusion, and that in fact, when I was fired as director in May 2017, I still didn't know whether there was anything to it. In short, that is the philosophical proof that proves that there's a good chance that there was a conspiracy concerning the Clinton emails and FBI protection of Hillary. Because they wanted her to be president, not Donald Trump. And you know what? Even after all that conspiracy and manipulation that we can all but prove happened, Trump still won. You know why? Because he was more popular than Hillary Clinton as a person. People responded to him more positively across the board. Yes, she won the popular vote, but she was not herself popular. The two are mutually exclusive, in spite of what the name suggests. Because no amount of conspiracy, short of literally rigging votes, could ever get her to win. There's no way anyone's ever going to vote for that old bat. And actually get a winning vote, that is. Cory Booker wants a government solution to make everyone go vegan. And I'm just like, See, the thing is, I don't eat any meat or dairy myself. I only eat vegetables, but I don't accept the term vegan. I am not a vegan. I just eat plants. Because vegan is more than just a diet. It's literally a system of morals and a way of life that I don't fully ascribe to. But, and while I would love if everyone, ate vegetables and got rid of the air polluting and land fallowing modern agriculture. But you know what? A government solution is no solution at all, and here's why. He is quoted as saying he became vegan after coming to the realization that eating eggs didn't align with my spirit. And while claiming he does not want to lecture Americans on their diets, Booker says Americans need to be nudged into fake cheese because the planet cannot sustain the environmental impact of the food industry. You see the planet Earth moving towards what is the standard American diet. We've seen this massive increase in consumption of meat produced by the industrial animal agriculture industry. The tragic reality is this planet simply can't sustain billions of people consuming industrially produced animal agriculture because of environmental impact, he said. It's just not possible. The Resurgent.com reports Booker went on to complain about the devastating impact of climate changing emissions produced by animals, according to the VEG News report. The number one reason for rainforest destruction now is animal grazing land. We see greenhouse-producing gas produce. The devastating impact is just not practical. The numbers just don't add up. The problem why a government solution isn't going to work is if you make meat more expensive, all that's going to do is it's not going to cause people to buy more vegetables, it's going to cause people to buy more junk. What are you going to do then? Increase the price on junk food? This is why government solutions never work. The politicians always miss that one little crucial factor, and that is individuality and individual decisions. It's something I think it seems to sort of baffle them, that anyone could choose something other than what they think they're going to. Blows their tiny little political brains. A more socialized solution, not as in socialism, but socialized as in like literally society itself, not government, is a much better solution. Just get the real science out there, Just get the real science. And vegans, if you want to push an all-vegetable diet, stop using the pseudoscience, because there is pseudoscience there. There's pseudoscience on both sides of the argument. More on the meat side, but there's still plenty on the vegan side. So there you go. If you want to know why I don't eat any meat or dairy, well, you know what? Why don't you email me sometime? Send me a message, and I'll, just ask me sometime, and I'll answer. But I don't got time in the middle of this show. It'd take a little too long. I need to focus on the issue. New York Democrats reintroducing a bill legalizing doctor-assisted suicide. Really quick, I just want to say, I'm okay with doctor-assisted suicide, so long as it's something the doctor actually wants to do, and only in the rare case. Like, I don't believe in the death of dignity BS. But if you're going to die of, like, a really, really horrible death, like a really horrible disease like dysentery or something, if I had a choice between humane anesthesia, if I had a choice between humane euthanasia or dying of, like, a horrible disease like amoebic dysentery or sepsis, I'll take the euthanasia over that. Because I don't want my death to be, like, horrible and all suffery. That's a word now. Anyway, WesternJournal.com reports, we stand on a precipice. Kathleen Gallagher, director of pro-life activities for New York's Catholic Conference, recently told New York conservatives, according to the Albany Times-Union, we're looking into a culture of death, and our state is diving right down into the moral abyss. Dennis Post, a spokesman for the State Catholic Conference, headed by Cardinal Timothy Dolan, told the New York Daily News that physician-assisted suicide is not a Catholic issue. It's a human life issue. There are many opponents of assisted suicide, including those who advocate for people with disabilities and patients' rights and the elderly. We're proud to be in a coalition that stands up for those who may be exploited at the end of life. Yeah, like people who get chopped up and harvested for organs in hospitals. That's a real thing. I'm hoping at some point I get to talk some news on that. I haven't seen news on it in a while, but I really want to talk about it. Anyway, although blocking the legislation is a priority for Catholic leaders, the group Compassion and Choices is marshalling support for the legislation, seeking to capitalize on the swing represented by having all three parts of the Empire State's government, Governor, State Assembly, and State Senate under Democratic control. New York's Medical Aid in Dying Act was reintroduced last month. Medical aid in dying is overwhelmingly supported by New Yorkers. Now we know it's overwhelmingly supported by New York doctors. We will get this law passed in New York because it's the right thing to do, said Democratic Senator Dianne Savino. One of the bill's meager sponsors in a Compassion and Choices news release. Hold on. I don't know what my decision would be if I were in that situation, but I do know I would want the option for me, my loved ones, and all New Yorkers who want that option, she said. A Democratic maneuver that allowed legislation supporting assisted suicide to clear New Jersey Senate Committee on Health, Human Services, and Senators has been contested by the bill's opponents. 2 Democrats who opposed the legislation were replaced by 2 Democrats who were in favor, the Free Beacon reported. Dr. T. Brian Callister, the governor-elect of Nevada's American College of Physicians and opponent of physician-assisted suicide, said an ethics investigation is needed. It seemed very irregular, really, a charade of a hearing with the outcome apparently a foregone conclusion. Callister told Fox News, the lack of transparency and the clear effort to silence opponents to physician-assisted suicide is an affront to our democracy, at the most basic level. Mary Tassi, executive director of New Jersey Right to Life, said that there are still hurdles the bill must clear, told the Free Beacon that she is not giving up yet. There wasn't any clamor for this legislation from New Jersey. It was a well-funded outside group, she said. Medical technology has advanced to alleviate suffering up to the point of death. This is dangerous legislation. At the time of New York's adoption of its liberal abortion law, the New York State Catholic Conference issued a statement linking abortion and assisted suicide. They seem mutually exclusive, but sure. Our governor and legislative leaders hail this new abortion law as progress. This is not progress. Progress will be achieved when our laws and our culture once again value and respect each unrepeatable gift of human life, from the first moment of creation to natural death. The statement said, Would that not make us truly the most enlightened and progressive state in the nation? American stocks apparently surged on Tuesday after the Senate Intel Committee found zero evidence of Russian collusion. Boom! There you go. American stocks rising, surging, after the Senate Intel Committee found zero evidence of Russian collusion. Take that, Mueller. Or is it? Well, according to NBC News, the investigation is coming to a close. After almost 2 years and more than 200 interviews, ZeroHedge.com reports Senate Intel Committee Chairman Richard Burr said the decision to end the probe was made after the committee started running out of new questions to ask. If we write a report based upon the facts that we have, then we don't have anything that would suggest there was collusion by the Trump campaign and Russia, said Senator Richard Burr, RNC, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. In an interview with CBS News last week, Burr was careful to note that more facts may yet be uncovered. But he also made clear that the investigation was nearing an end. We know we're getting to the bottom of the barrel because they're not new questions that we're searching for answers to, Burr said. Unsurprisingly, Democrats on the committee that the more than 100 contacts between Trump campaign staff and the Russians before Trump's inauguration, some of which of course were made after the election, raised reason for suspicion. Though they didn't challenge Burr's characterization of the probe, Democratic Senate investigators who spoke to NBC News on condition of anonymity did not dispute Burr's characterization, but said they lacked context. We were never going to find a contract signed in blood saying, "Hey Vlad, we're going to collude," one Democratic aide said. The series of contacts between Trump's associates, his campaign officials, his children, and various Russians suggest a campaign willing to accept help from a foreign adversary, the Democrats say. By many counts, Trump and his associates had more than 100 contacts with Russians before the January 2017 presidential inauguration. Unlike the House probe, the Senate Intel Committee probe was the only bipartisan congressional inquiry into the collusion question, and was co-led by Burr and ranking member Mark Warner. The Senate Intelligence Committee has been conducting the sole bipartisan inquiry led by Burr and ranking Democrat Mark Warner of Virginia. The committee has sifted through some 300,000 documents investigators tell NBC News, including classified intelligence, shedding light on how the Russians communicated about their covert operations to interfere in the 2016 election. In short, it sounds like the Democrats, when faced with the reality of this other probe by the committee, basically, they're just trying to muddy the waters and make the conclusion seem less clear so people will be more likely to believe their narrative. But counterintuitive as it may seem, the odds of Trump being impeached during his first term have climbed on Tuesday. Meanwhile, reports surfaced recently suggesting that the Mueller probe might also soon be coming to an end, after several of his prosecutors left or were transferred elsewhere within the DOJ. But this wouldn't be the first time that reports of the Mueller probe's imminent end proved wrong. In short, though, the Mueller probe is most likely fake, and this Senate Intelligence Community probe may very well disprove it, and finally ascertain that, undoubtedly, the Mueller probe is fake. That's just my opinion, but it seems quite likely. In European news, certain parts of France are now under Islamic Sharia. And by the by, I don't call it Sharia law because actually when you're saying Sharia law, you're actually saying law. Sharia is just the word law in Arabic. Just like when you're saying Sahara Desert, you're actually saying desert. As it turns out, names of things in Arabic are actually super descriptive, as in like they literally describe what it is. More of a definition than a name, really. But certain parts of France are now under Islamic Sharia. During a recent talk, Zemmour warned French citizens, "We aren't in France any longer." It's rather easy to understand people dressed like in 7th century Arabia. There is a curfew. The girls are asked to dress decently, meaning not in skirt and even less in a miniskirt. They are forced to come back home at 10 p.m. or they will be insulted, spat at, and so on, said Zenmore. Infowars.com. Oh boy. Well, at least Infowars doesn't editorialize much, but still. I mean, that's Alex Jones. But it reports, he went on to point out a case where police officers refused to enter an area to back up their colleagues because they feared being attacked or starting a riot. Police officers don't enter those neighborhoods. You saw recently that in the Grand Borne ghetto south of Paris, when the two cops were shot at, their colleagues didn't enter, said Zenmore. You certainly haven't missed that. They didn't enter either to take revenge or to arrest the perpetrators. And why didn't they enter, in your opinion? First, because they were ordered not to enter, because otherwise there would be riots, and so they never entered. Despite police not being able to enter many areas, Zenmore doesn't describe them as lawless, remarking instead that the areas are run by the Qaids, Arab gang leaders. Islamic law, and everyone is trying to create, it's the ancient alliance of the sword and the aspergillum. The army and the church. Sounds familiar, only here it's the alliance of the Kalashnikov and the Quran. This is France today, said Zenmore, pointing to similar Islamic patrols in the UK where people who drink alcohol or women wear skirts are punished. In an interview given by France's then Interior Minister Gerard Collomb back in February, Collomb admitted that the country's security situation is dire thanks to mass immigration. Asked what he thought about the security situation, Collomb responded, the relations between people are very hard. People don't want to live together. Pressed as to whether he thought mass immigration was responsible for his unrest, Collomb responded, enormously so, before going on to acknowledge that France did not need any more immigration committees, and France are engaging in conflict with one another. More and more it's becoming very violent, said Collomb, agreeing with the interviewer that some form of societal breakdown like partition or secession was a major concern. How much time do we have before it's too late? The interviewer asked Collomb. To which he replied, I don't want to create fear, but I think there's very little time left. It's difficult to estimate, but I would say that within 5 years the situation will become irreversible. Yes, we have 5-6 years to avoid the worst. As I reported in 2018, several French generals accused Emmanuel Macron of treason for signing the UN Migration Pact. And while I agree with this, some other individuals do not. And those said generals have since been penalized. Yeah, I was with these guys, as I just said. But, I guess, it wasn't quite as unilateral as I thought. France has been hit by a massive Yellow Vest protests and riots over the last few months, partly as a backlash to Macron's immigration policy. A recent Juan Juarez Foundation poll out of France found that a quarter of citizens believe elites are using mass migration to replace native Europeans. In the first part of his speech, Zemmour outlined why the elite pushes for mass immigration, because native populations are no longer willing to do menial jobs and see their standard of living drop year after year, creating the need for a new servant class to be imported from Africa and the Middle East. Zemmour described mass immigration as an invasion, and said that far from migrants integrating native populations were reverse assimilating to Islamic culture or leaving altogether. This is what happens. You import the Middle East, you become the Middle East. They're not learning. Multiculturalism doesn't work. God. Now, for our final story today, aside from me apparently needing reading glasses, shit, my nearsightedness is getting the better of me. But, in our final story today under Science and Health News, apparently a doctor named Royal Raymond Rife was suppressed as he was an early cancer researcher. But let's take this with a grain of salt, as this kind of has the flavor of like a conspiracy, Trust me, I read the article. I read it. I had to de-editorialize somewhat when I constructed my bullet points of it to talk about. But I think, I'm presenting what is essentially the raw information. And really, it's just, even without the editorialized bits, the opinion bits, it still sounds pretty screwy. So let's just jump down that rabbit hole. Basically, Dr. Rife was a holistic doctor, so here we go. Born in 1888, Royal Raymond Rife was an American inventor known for his belief that he could observe and render inert a number of viruses which he thought were causal factors in several diseases, most notably cancer. Unfortunately, cancer is not a virus, as we recently discovered. Cancer is caused by malfunctioning stem cells. His Rife machine can destroy infectious organisms, viruses, bacteria, and fungus, and has been used to eliminate more than 50 different microorganisms, including cancer. You could say his machine goes rifing through microscopic particles. That was bad. Tuberculosis, strep, and leprosy. Holistic Cancer Research reports Rife began research cancer in 1922, but it took 10 years before he was able to isolate the VX virus, which was a cancer microorganism. A year later, Rife invented the universal microscope, which a light source technology that could magnify an object to 60,000 times its size. Because of his invention, Rife was the first person to see a live virus. Once Rife was able to determine the main oscillation rate for each organism, he would then try to destroy it with light frequency resonance. Each microbe has a natural frequency that it resonates with. So when Rife increased their natural oscillations, the organism became distorted and disintegrated from structural stresses. Savage! Wow. More importantly, no surrounding tissue is harmed from these oscillations. Rife named the process mortal oscillatory rate. Well, many objects, both living and non-living, have a vibration rate. Quick story, years ago my brother was in this band where their vocalist, she could hit notes that were in the resonation frequency of the bass player's head. So every time, to avoid headaches and possible seizure, or even aneurysms, every time she hit certain notes, he had to open his mouth to change the resonation frequency. Sound is crazy. But as part of his research in 1934, Rife's machine cured, in quotes, cured 14 out of 16 terminally ill cancer patients within 2 months. The remaining 2 were cured within the following 6 weeks, resulting in a 100% cure rate. I find that dubious. Nothing has a 100% cure rate. That's crazy. On November 20th, 1931, Rife, along with 34 of his most distinguished colleagues in medicine, attended a banquet entitled The End of All Diseases. By 1939, the same group of physicians essentially denied Rife's existence after finding a cure for cancer. How is it possible for Rife to be completely ignored by his colleagues, and what were the motivating factors behind this? Here's the inside story. On the eve of a press conference to announce the results of the 1934 study on Rife's cancer therapy, Dr. Milbank Johnson, former president of the Southern California AMA, was fatally poisoned, and his papers lost. Also, after a failed attempt by Morris Fishbein to buy the rights to Rife's healing instrument for the medical drug industry, Rife's labs were destroyed by arson and sabotaged. Dr. Nemes, who had duplicated some of the work of Rife, was killed in a mysterious fire which destroyed all his research papers. A similar fire also destroyed the Burnett lab, which was validating Rife's work. Royal Rife himself was killed in 1971 by an accidental lethal dose of Valium and alcohol at Grossmont Hospital. According to Wiki, interest in Rife was revived in the 1980s by author Barry Lyons, who wrote a book about Rife entitled The Cancer Cure That Worked. The book claimed that Rife's beam ray device could cure cancer, but that all mention of his discoveries was suppressed in the 1930s by a wide-ranging conspiracy headed by the American Medical Association. The American Cancer Society described Lyons' claims as implausible, noting that the book was written in a style typical of conspiratorial theorists and defied any independent verification. In 1994, the American Cancer Society reported that Rife machines were being sold in a pyramid-like multi-level marketing scheme. A key component in the marketing of Rife devices has been the claim, initially put forward by Rife himself, that the devices were being suppressed by an establishment conspiracy against cancer cures. As stated in the article, Dr. Caldwell, all cancer can be cured in less than 12 weeks. Cancer is a $60 billion a year industry, while cancer protection and the early intervention of cancer brings in on an additional $162 billion each year. Question: in an age where technology can be used to improve the quality of life for everyone, why has the Rife machine been ridiculed by the medical industry and suppressed for so long? Answer: according to this, these guys' opinion, the last thing Big Pharma cured was polio. There is no money in repeat business when finding a cure to anything. If you are wondering why there is no official cure for cancer, then try tracing the revenue cancer takes in each year. Cancer is a $60 billion a year industry, while cancer protection and the early intervention of cancer brings in an additional $162 billion each year. But that is just an opinion. That is not proof of anything. And it all sounds rather miraculous, doesn't it? I mean, we know a virus does not cause cancer. And 100% cure rate. Now, mind you, some people who believe in Rife will obviously say, "Oh, you're obviously part of the establishment." But trust me, I'm not. I don't have any political involvement. I'm just some guy who still lives at home with his parents because they need his disability money in order to keep the house. So I'm basically stuck here. So, I mean, I leave, they go out on the street, basically. I'm just a simple working class idiot like you, so what would I have with the establishment? So just before you try and claim anything, there you go. So yeah, it just seems a little too miraculous. A bit snake oil salesman-ish. I admit, the sudden death and the cause of the death at a hospital of Mr. Rife seems very odd to me. I will admit that. That is very strange. But that is certainly not proof of anything. It almost counts as philosophical proof, except in order for philosophical proof to be accepted, it needs some kind of observable underlying principle. And no such principle is being displayed. Anyway, that's it today, folks. Have a good day.